Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Russia for the first time in what feels like a good little while, and this will be my first dedicated Russian review in maybe about a year or something like that, maybe a little bit longer. But we're going to go back to Moscow and we're returning to a brewery that I've had some very positive encounters with before, and this will be review number 6 involving these guys. So for this review then we are going to return to Zagovor Brewery, and we're having a little look at the Binge watching today. So this one comes in at 8% ABV, it's a New England style double IPA, and it's supposed to be pretty damn good, this one. On Untappd it has a rating I think of like 4.25, so yeah, this one should be really quite interesting. I picked this beer up in Kiosk over in Copenhagen, and I can't remember how much I paid for it. It was maybe about 50 Danish kroners or something like that, so that's roughly about 65 Swedish, so a little bit more than you would pay for an import beer over here through Systembolaget, but yeah, the opportunity to try Russian beers doesn't come up too much, and in my experience the ones that I have tried have been at pretty good quality actually, so really curious to see how this one turns out. Nice to revisit Zagovor Brewing after a little while, and these guys along with the likes of AF Brew and I guess Stam Beer, they're probably the three ones that you are most likely to come across in Europe these days. So yeah, let's see how we go on with this one. Been very impressed with the Russian craft beers generally. My first encounter with them I think was at the Malmö Brewing Company Russian Beer Festival, which I think was back in like 2016 or so. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. As always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Zagovor Brewery before. No doubt we will add some more to that list in the fairly near future. They're doing a lot of collaborations with other European breweries, so you will see these guys mentioned again soon, I'm sure. But there's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Russian beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and I do hope that that can become more regular over the next little while. The Russian breweries do seem to be getting out there a little bit more in Europe, so fingers crossed that continues. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Zagovor Brewery then, on to my brewery notes. So Zagovor Brewery, as I've told you before, was founded back in 2014, and they can be found in Moscow, the capital city. So apparently a lot of breweries in Russia started up when the currency collapsed back in 2014, and this meant that the imported craft beers became very expensive, so a lot of people just decided to brew their own, and hey presto, you've got quite a strong craft beer industry over there now. But the brewery was originally founded by 6 people, although one of them left being active in the brewery to return to work in medicine, and another went on to work in television, but he still helps with sales from what I understand. But the 4 founders that are still active in the brewery are Gregory Maleev, Alexander Maltsev, Alexander, Sasha Korobkov and Vadim Gurov. So the friends apparently met through music, and they played in various different bands. They travelled the world and they drank lots of different craft beers together. On their travels in America and Australia, they started to encounter the more craft beers, the IPAs and things like this, and they decided after a while that they wanted to brew their own, and this took them down the home brewing route, which wasn't all that common in Russia at the time from what I gather. But initially the brewery were contract brewing their beers, but then they opened up their own brewery in early 2018, and all the equipment that they have is Russian built, and it comes from 3 separate companies. So this is Brew Success Group, who are in St. Petersburg, or St. Petersburg as they would call it in Russia, Nomas, which comes from Mias, and then there's Pintcraft, who are from Voronezh. So Sasha Korobkov is the head brewer, and they started off brewing 180 hectolitres per month, but they do have the capacity to brew 300 hectolitres per month, and I believe they are just kind of gradually scaling up and getting more and more tanks as the orders increase. But as of August 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 160 different types of beer according to Untappd. The exact number as of the 21st of August is 161 different beers. But these guys also have an association with the Rule tap room in Moscow, and also the Dogma bottle shop as well, and that was where my friend Hannah, that was where she got my first beers that I reviewed for you from Russia maybe about a year and a half ago, 18 months, something like that. So yeah, I got a hold of some of the Zagovor and AF brew beers just before they started appearing in various bottle shops around Europe. It is actually fairly, if you look around 2 or 3, maybe 2 in every 3 bottle shops, online bottle shops these days, have some Russian beers. So it's a nice change actually. And as I say, my experience of the Russian beers from back in 2016 or so was very positive. So I do hope that we see more of these appearing over here over the next little while. At the moment it's fairly easy to get Zagovor and AF brew. Sometimes you can get Stam, and there are 1 or 2 other breweries that are starting to get out there now as well. But the name Zagovor translates into English as conspiracy, so this brewery's name is literally the Conspiracy Brewery. So yeah, pretty interesting. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Zagovor Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more, of course, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. For those of you who are watching from Russia, I believe they do have a VK page as well that you can follow. If you want to learn more about all the different beers, you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate things as well, and you will find a lot of information on all the different things that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this one then. I'm very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. As you can see, the can is once again sweating because of the glorious Scandinavian summer that we're having. Yeah, this one, there's a little bit of a kind of message in Russian there on the back. I can read Cyrillic, but my you know, my translation skills probably are not the best in Russian, so it says TB Marathon I Seril Selini Zapo. Yeah, I don't know what any of this means, but yeah, for those of you watching in Russia, there you can see there is the Russian message there. I did a very basic Russian course at university, and you know, I've been very interested in Russia because the history of the country is just, you know, absolutely crazy. All the revolutions and all of these kind of things. My history teacher at school loved Russia and Germany, so we did a lot of Russian and German history there. But there you can see the Zagovor brewery symbol there, the Conspiracy Brewery, as I mentioned. Would you say Pivovarna Zagovor in Russia, or is it Pivovarskaya or something? I can't quite remember. But yeah, there you can see the artwork on this one. Quite simple compared to some of the other Zagovor beers that you're going to come across. But this one, of course, it is meant to be kind of like a sort of retro film sort of theme that this one has. But yeah, this one is an 8% New England double IPA, 25 IBUs apparently, and it has Sabro, Citra Cryo and Idaho 7 in it. So Sabro, of course, we know is quite orangey and quite coconutty. Citra is the classic high alpha acid American hop. Mangoes, you know, complexities of like gooseberries and lemon lime and all of these kind of things. And then Idaho 7 has a lot of very soft tropical fruit, you know, apricots, pineapples, little bits of mango and stuff like this as well. But this one should be really nice. This can is a half litre, 500 millilitres, black top on this one. So without further ado, let's get it out and we will get on with the tasting then. Oh, a little bit hitting me in the eye there, which is always nice. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. Very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. So yeah, there we go. So yeah, this one's quite a pale New England IPA. I've had a good few beers from Zagovor before. I can tell you what they were, just a second. The other ones that I've had was the Sad Wave and the Stamp of Approval were the ones that I had before, and then the other beers that I've had were collaborations. They did one with Brewski here in Helsingborg here in Sweden, and they also did one with Puasta and also AF Brew in Estonia. That one was called the Trinity in Black, and you will see me review a special version of that at some point soon. But yeah, those are the 4 IPAs that I've had from these guys before. So I think, yeah, this is review number, I think I told you number 6, it might be number 5 actually. Maybe I told you lies, but yeah, I apologise for that. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, this one's poured a lovely, very kind of pale, yellowy colour, this one. This looks a little bit like peach juice or pineapple juice or something like that. Very, very pale, kind of bright yellow colour. If I stick my fingers behind the glass there, you can see this beer is pretty damn hazy. That's what you would expect from a New England IPA anyway, but yeah, as you go up the alcohol scale, you've got more oats, you've got more wheat in it, so it's going to get progressively more hazy. When the beer poured, it had a good finger of a kind of frothy, perfect white coloured head. This one, yeah, I would say perfect white. That's faded away to just be a very, very thin foamy layer, but yeah, pretty damn hazy this one. But I would say it's not the haziest that I've come across. I have come across ones that are a little bit more gloopy and soupy than that, but yeah, pretty impressive. Nothing overly surprising about this one, I guess you could say, in terms of its appearance, if you know the style. But yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma then, and just see how we get on with this one. Very, very curious to see how it turns out. So yeah, aroma time. Yeah, it smells very nice. Straight away, very soft and very kind of tropically. Focus on the malt base first. I mean, to me, this one has a good little bit of a kind of wheaty bitiness to it. You can smell it. It does have a degree of crispness in the malt base as well. You can definitely smell a little bit of the pale malt. Towards the back of the nose, you can smell a little bit of the more bitey wheat, but you're also getting some of the smoother kind of oaty characters out of this beer as well, which is kind of interesting. There's maybe a little touch of like a kind of Werther's Originally biscuity sort of thing out of this, but not too much. I really find this beer, it leans more towards the pale malty and wheaty end on the malty part of it. As I say, a wee bit of a biscuity note to it, and yeah, the aroma that comes out of this one, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, the malty side of it is pretty damn solid. On the hoppy side of things, it is kind of what you would expect. It's got a good bit of floral aromaticity to it, a big kind of spicy note. All of the hops that you have in here are very high alpha acid. If I remember right, Idaho 7 is about 14 alpha acid. I can't remember what Sabro is. Is Sabro not about 14 or 15 as well? And then Citra, of course, we know is about 13 or 14. So yeah, this one does have a good little bit of that kind of big floral aromatic spice to it. I get a little bit of earthiness out of this one, which I would probably think there was mosaic in this beer if I was smelling it blindly, because it's got a wee bit of the earthiness and it's got the kind of orangey notes in it. The orange, of course, in this case is coming from the Sabro. But yeah, the fruits in this one are really, really interesting. So I mean, you do get a bit of that stronger mango and a bit more of the kind of stronger passion fruit, and that's the Citra, I think, really, that's giving you that. You get a nice bit of the orangey quality to it. You do get the coconut from the Sabro, definitely. A lot of people use coconut as a descriptor for Sabro, and you really do get that, particularly at the front of the nose there. And it actually goes quite nicely with the oaty character that this beer has. The more and more that you smell of this one, the more oatiness you get out of it. But yeah, the oaty qualities that this beer has comes across. It comes out very, very nicely. And as I say, a little bit of coconut in there. You've got some nice kind of softer tropical fruits in there, a little bit of papaya, a little bit of a sort of pineapple-y note, also a wee bit of apricot. You know, it really starts to lean more and more. The more you smell of it, the kind of stronger, more punchy tropical fruits, the more pungent tropical fruits, the passion fruit and mangoes and stuff, they start to take a bit of a back seat, and the front of the nose really kind of shines a little bit more. You get the, as I say, the pineapples, the papayas, the apricots, you get the softer fruits from the Idaho 7 coming out in this one. But yeah, nice, quite bright, juicy tangerine note out of this one. I do find that at the very front of the nose too, it does have a little bit of a citrusy zest to it, in fairness. So yeah, it does have a nice kind of citrusy, zesty type quality to it as well. It's got a wee bit, I'd say it's more kind of limey. There's a wee touch of a limey note to this one. That can be the Citra that can give you that. That's not too prominent though. The focus really is on the kind of softer tropical fruits rather than the lime. But I do find there is a wee touch of lime coming out of this one. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is very, very nice. It's one of these ones that's not too punchy in any one regard. It kind of reminds me a lot of some of the Treehouse beers that I've had before. It's got a wee, you know, I think when I first tried these beers, they did remind me a little bit of the Treehouse ones, and or was it? I think, yeah, because they were quite, I remember these ones from Zagovor being quite creamy. I remember them being a little bit more on the creamy end of the scale, whereas, you know, Trillium were always a bit more wheaty and bitey, the Alchemist beers were always a bit more farmhousey, and the Treehouse ones were a little bit more creamy. And I remember comparing the original Zagovor ones to the Treehouse beers. But yeah, I'll be very curious to see how this one turns out. But as I always say, take a bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. This one is pretty interesting, I think, so do enjoy it. Let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. Lovely, slightly wheaty and very soft tropical fruity aroma from this one. And as I say, on the green side of the hops, you've got a little bit of grassiness there, you've got a good little bit of floral aromaticity. But yeah, it's quite a smooth, easygoing kind of double IPA, this one, from the Aroma. But yeah, this one is the binge watching. A New England double IPA coming in at 8% ABV with Cryo Citra, Sabro and Idaho 7 from the Zagovor Brewery in Moscow over in Russia. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange at school, na zdrowie. Yeah, that's pretty damn good, I have to say. Not surprised, you know, the Russians are producing some really nice stuff over there these days. You know, this is my third IPA from these guys now, like I said, and this one, it's difficult to say whether this one is any better than the other two, the stamp of approval, or what was that? I forget what the other one was called now. But yeah, the other, it's difficult to say whether this one is better than the other two, but I tell you something, it is really good quality. Sad Wave, that's it. So Sad Wave was what the other one was called. But yeah, this is a lovely New England double for me, so thumbs up to Zagovor once again. But yeah, first impression of this is, again, it's a very creamy leaning New England double. It does have a bit of wheaty bitiness to it, in fairness, but it's almost, this one, I think I remember saying the other ones were closer to Treehouse, but this one, to me, it does strike me as having a little bit more of a balance between the Treehousey wheaty bitiness and the Trillium wheaty bitiness and the Treehousey creaminess. This one's really nicely balanced in terms of its malt base, and if you've watched the channel before, you will know that I do love a good malt base. So yeah, this gets a thumbs up from me, but let's try and break down the flavour a little bit more and analyse it properly. So yeah, so straight away with this beer, the thing that's going to jump out at you is that it's a very soft and smooth and quite creamy IPA, but if you go towards the back third of your tongue, that's where you get a little bit more of the kind of bitiness out of the wheat. You can feel at the back of your palate that it is just a little bit more bitey and a little bit more grainy there, but in the middle of your palate you can feel the pale malty base. In that middle third of your tongue you can feel the pale malty base. Towards the front of that middle third of your tongue you've got the slightly thicker oaty kind of creamy notes coming out of it. Behind that you've got a little bit of a very slight sort of Werther's Original type flavour, and you've got a few biscuity notes in there as well, like a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. You know, I use these descriptors quite often for the New England IPAs, but this one is definitely one of the biscuity and the sort of Werther's Original notes are quite, they're not overly prominent in this. This one's really more about the kind of oaty smoothness. It's about the balance between the kind of oaty smoothness further forward and the bitiness of the wheat further back, and then you've just got that little touch of sweetness there which is covering the alcohol in the middle of the palate there. It's quite interesting the transition this one makes. So yeah, at the front of that middle third of your tongue it's quite oaty and creamy. You go into the middle of your palate a bit, it's a bit more kind of pale malty, and there's a wee bit of biscuit like I said. Then as you go towards the back third of your palate you can feel it gets a little bit thicker and a little bit more bready, and you've got a wee bit of bitiness from the wheat in this one. So yeah, it's pretty damn, the malt base in this one is exactly what you would expect, but it's really pretty damn well balanced actually, so big thumbs up to Zagovor for this. It's another really solid New England IPA from its, well, we've only talked about the malt base so far, but generally speaking, this is a very nice beer. This is definitely comparable to the likes of, you know, your Gammas from Copenhagen, Dry and Bitter, Stigbergets, O Brewing, Lervig, all of these kind of guys that we would normally drink in Scandinavia. The stuff I've experienced in England, like the Cloudwaters and the Wylam's, the Norths and all these kind of things, this beer wouldn't look out of place next to those. Yeah, as I said, the Russians are doing some really good stuff, so if you get the chance to try some of their beers, I do recommend that you have a look at them, because they're pretty damn good. But yeah, that is pretty damn nice, I have to say. So yeah, let's have a little look at the rest of this then. I can feel the further I go into the aftertaste with this one, if you let it sit on your tongue a little bit, it definitely starts to lean. You get the wheatiness, the wheaty bitiness just becomes a little bit more kind of prominent in the aftertaste, but some of the creaminess, in fairness, you do get the creaminess kind of smoothing out a little bit on your tongue too, so that's a really interesting point to make about this beer. Both of the malty aspects of this one come out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste, and it suits the beer really nicely. In the back corners of the palate you do have a little touch of earthiness from this one, but as you move further forward it does smoothen out a little bit, and then as you reach the front corners of the palate you do start to get a nice little bit of floral aromaticity to this one. It tells you on the can that it's 25 IBUs, that's not a lot of bitterness, but you know, 25 or 30 is exactly what you would expect from this style. Although in fairness, a number of breweries, when it comes to the double and imperial versions of the New England, they tend to you know, some of them can put the IBUs up to about 40, sometimes even 50, but yeah, the New Englands generally are less bitter than the old West Coasts that we were drinking, you know, 2015, 2016, but as I say, this is a lovely beer. Round the front curve of the tongue, of course, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, but yeah, you can feel the graininess from the wheat, a little bit the kind of wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, and then the floral notes really linger into the aftertaste as well, so yeah. But yeah, let's look at the fruity side of this one then. So yeah, as I always say, on that front third of your tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. And again, this one has a really nice composition to it. If you go towards the back of that front third of your tongue, there's a wee bit of a more, you do get a little bit of the stronger passion fruity note, which I believe you might get some of that from Idaho 7. But I think mainly that's the Citra that's going to give you that. You do get a bit of a stronger, darker passion fruity note there. It kind of progresses to be a bit more kind of mangoey, which again I think is more the Citra. And as you move further forward from that, you start to get the softer tropical fruits from the Idaho 7. I think it becomes more kind of, there's a wee bit of an apricot-y papaya type thing there, and then you start to get the very soft pineapple further forward on the palate there. And almost like just behind the front tip of the tongue, you've just got like a little kind of oily bit of the palate there, and that's where you get a nice kind of that's where you get that kind of the sort of orangey note, that kind of tangerine mandarini orange from Sabro. It's actually quite bright and almost quite zesty, so I would be tempted to say it's more of a mandarin than an oily orange. Of course, there's many hops you can use for the orangey notes. I'm a sucker for orangey IPAs. As I've told you, you've got Amarillo, which will give you the more oily orange. You know, Mosaic will give you the more kind of tangerine notes. Azaka can be a good one as well. It gives you an oily orange, but at the same time a kind of pineapple-y note as well. You've got Waiti Pacifica from New Zealand. What else do you have? I think the Styrian Dragon gives you a bit of orange from Slovenia. Mandarin Bavaria from Germany is the other one as well. There's lots of different orangey hops, and Sabro is a hop that's gaining a little bit of prominence recently. But the one thing you do notice with this, once you know, there's a point in the aftertaste where the kind of smoothness, the sort of pale malts and the sort of oats come out of this one, and that's when you start to notice the more kind of coconutty aspects of the Sabro really coming out, and that's interesting to note about this beer as well. And you'll find the kind of coconut notes. It's almost on the edge of the palate at the front corners, but it mixes in with the oaty flavours that the beer has. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer, as I say, really is very, very nice. The more and more that I drink of this, the kind of smoother it becomes, to be honest. But yeah, on the very kind of edge of the tongue, you do get a little bit of a citrusy kind of zesty note from the grassiness there. It does have a wee touch of a limey character. It's not quite as prominent as it was in the Aroma, but you do have a bit of zestiness from that kind of grassy ester that the beer has. So I do like how that all goes together in this one. It's really it really is very, very nicely done, this one. This is one of these beers where everything just fits together very, very nicely. So like I say, this one does have a good, if we compare this to the American New Englands, it really does have a bit more of the the kind of wheaty bitiness that you would expect of Trillium, but it's also got some of the kind of creamy and softer fruity aspects that you'd expect of Treehouse, and it finds a really nice middle ground there as well. But this is another, in terms of its flavour, it's another really high quality New England IPA from Russia, and I'm not surprised based on my previous encounters both with Zagovor and with the kind of general craft beer scene over there. I don't think I've had a New England IPA from AF Brew yet. I think it's mainly been stouts and the Imperial Red, and I think it was a triple West Coast IPA that I reviewed from them as well. I do need to see if I can get a New England from AF Brew, but yeah, very impressed with this one from Zagovor. Stam also do a very good New England IPA. Wild Lab are another brewery over there. that do some really interesting stuff. So yeah, just goes to show you, pretty much whatever country you go to these days, if they've had a few years going at the craft beer, they tend to be pretty damn good. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, you know, it's pretty mid-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth in this one. Generally speaking, it is a very smooth and very kind of juicy drinking beer. It's got quite a bit, it really gets creamier the more that you drink of it as well. This is one of the creamier New Englands that I've had in recent times. It just feels very, very soft in the palate. As the can tells you, this is 25 IBUs. It does feel a little bit more than that, in fairness. The more that I drink of it, I do get a bit more of a kind of floral, spicy note out of it. As I said earlier, all of the hops in this are fairly high alpha acid, so that's not surprising. But you've got a lovely kind of juicy fruit to it. The kind of creaminess of the oats helps promote the kind of juiciness of the fruits there as well. And you've got a nice little bit of a grainy, bitey quality comes out of this one as well. The wheaty, you do have a little bit of a grainy, bitey and wheaty, bitey note that comes out of this one as well. The malty character is very, very smooth, little touch sweet and smooth from the oaty side of the beer as well. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Binge Watching, an 8% New England double IPA brewed with Citra Cryo, Idaho 7 and Sabro from Zagovor Brewery in Moscow over in Russia. Really cool to have another Russian beer for you on the channel after a little while, and hopefully I can get a hold of a few more from these guys. I do need to try, I'd love to try a West Coast IPA from Zagovor. That would be really interesting, and I think to try some of their own brewed darker beers, because the darker beers that I've had from these guys have all been collaborations and stuff. I'd love to try one of their own dark beers actually, so we'll need to see. I need to keep an eye on what's coming out of Russia and what we can actually get over here in Europe, but I do want to go and visit the place. As I said before, it would be awesome actually to get Zagovor on a Meet the Brewery segment in the video, so yeah, I need to see about getting to visit Russia at some point. That is definitely on the list. But yeah, as I say, let's leave it at that for this one. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Zagovor Brewery as well. Do give me some other Russian brewery recommendations if you happen to be watching from over there. It's always great to hear from you guys, as I said. And yeah, check out my social media, check out Zagovor Brewing, and I'm sure we'll return to Russia fairly soon actually. So yeah, this one was the Binge Watching, an 8% New England double IPA from Zagovor Brewery over in Moscow in Russia. Thank you again for watching. I'll catch you guys very soon. Make sure you check out this brewery, and yeah, more Russian beer reviews to come. Slanja, Skol, nice zdrowie. Cheers.